The emergency alarm echoed through the massive space station known as Nexus Prime. Ambassador Hyunwoo walked slowly down the long corridor toward the main council chamber. His black suit was perfectly pressed, and his face showed no emotion. Behind him, 2 human guards followed quietly. For 50 years, this had been the routine. The Galactic Council would face a crisis somewhere in the galaxy. They would call for humans to fix it. Humans would go, fight, negotiate, and often die, to solve problems that other species created but could not handle themselves. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from 15 different alien species sat in a massive circle. The air smelled strange, filled with different atmospheres that each species needed to breathe. Translation devices hummed softly as they converted thousands of different sounds into words everyone could understand. Hyunwoo took his place at the small human section. Around him, the other species looked enormous. The Vithani were tall crystal beings that sparkled in the light. The Quilari looked like giant insects with too many eyes. The Nephrons floated in gas-filled suits that made them look like living clouds. Every species in the council was bigger, older, or more advanced than humans, but whenever there was trouble, they called humans. The Vithani Chancellor stood up. Her crystal body rang like a bell when she moved. "Ambassador Hyunwoo," she said in her musical voice, "the situation in the Outer Rim has become impossible. The war between the Mordeki Empire, Centauri Commonwealth, and hegemony of Kes threatens to destroy 17 star systems." Hyunwoo nodded. He had read the reports. 3 powerful alien civilizations had started fighting over trade routes. Their war had already killed billions of beings and destroyed dozens of planets. Refugee ships filled with frightened families drifted through space with nowhere to go. "We need human peacekeepers to stop this war," continued the Chancellor. "Your species has the special ability to understand all sides of any conflict. Only humans can make peace between these 3 powers." The Quilari Hive Queen spoke next. Her voice sounded like 1,000 insects talking at once. "Human soldiers must also establish safe zones for refugees. Human doctors must treat the wounded. Human engineers must rebuild the destroyed space stations." Hyunwoo listened to the long list of demands. It was always the same. Humans would be expected to risk their lives cleaning up messes that other species had made. If humans died in the process, the Council would offer a moment of silence and then find new problems for the survivors to solve. When the Council finished speaking, they all looked at Hyunwoo. They expected him to say yes, as humans always did. They expected him to promise that human ships would be on their way within hours. Instead, Hyunwoo stood up slowly. The chamber became completely quiet. Even the translation devices seemed to hold their breath. "No," Hyunwoo said. The words seemed to hit the Council like a physical blow. Several representatives leaned forward, their alien faces showing confusion. Others made sounds that their translators could not convert into words. "I am sorry," said the Vithani Chancellor. "The translation device must have made an error. Did you say no?" "I said no," Hyunwoo repeated. His voice was calm and clear. "Earth is withdrawing from all Galactic Council operations. We will no longer serve as your emergency response team. We will no longer risk human lives to solve problems that you created, but cannot fix yourselves." The Quilari Hive Queen made a sound like breaking glass. "This is impossible. Humans have always helped the galaxy. It is your purpose." "Our purpose," Hyunwoo said, "is whatever we choose it to be. For 50 years, humans have answered every call for help. We have fought in wars that were not ours. We have died on planets we had never seen before, protecting species that barely considered us worth noticing." He walked to the center of the chamber. Around him, 15 different species stared in shock. "When humans solve your problems, you take credit for the success. When humans fail, you blame us for not trying hard enough. You treat us like tools that you can pick up when convenient and put away when the work is done." The Nephron representative floated forward in his gas suit. "But without human help, the galaxy will fall into chaos." "Then perhaps," Hyunwoo said, "the galaxy should learn to solve its own problems." He turned and walked toward the door. The chamber erupted in noise as 15 species all tried to talk at once. Some begged him to reconsider. Others threatened consequences. A few demanded to speak with Earth's government directly. Hyunwoo ignored them all. At the door, he stopped and looked back one final time. Earth has already recalled all human ships, soldiers, and civilians from Council space. Any aliens currently in human territory are welcome to stay or leave as they choose. But humans will no longer serve the Galactic Council in any capacity. He left the chamber and walked back down the long corridor. Behind him, the sounds of angry alien voices grew louder and louder. On his ship, Captain Taemin was already preparing for departure. The human crew worked quietly and efficiently. They had all received the same orders from Earth. Pack everything. Leave nothing behind. Go home. Engineer So Young disconnected the last of the human-built systems that had been keeping the station running smoothly. The aliens will have to figure out how to maintain their own equipment now, she said. Diplomat Kang Ho collected the final files from his office. Do you think they will learn to work together without us? He asked. Captain Taemin watched through the window as the massive station grew smaller behind them. I guess we will find out. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of human ships. Human colonies went dark. Human research stations powered down. Human trading posts closed their doors. The vast network of human presence that had quietly held galactic civilization together for half a century simply vanished. Most aliens thought humans were bluffing. They believed humans would come back once they realized how much the galaxy needed them. They were wrong. Humans had finally learned the difference between being needed and being respected. They had chosen respect. As Captain Taemin's ship jumped to hyperspace, heading toward Earth, the Galactic Council was still arguing about what to do. They would keep arguing for a long time. Without humans to actually solve their problems, arguing was all they knew how to do. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when the species that held everything together decided they had had enough. 6 months had passed since humans left the Galactic Council. The silence was deafening. Counselor Mi-young sat in her small observation post hidden in an asteroid field. As one of the few humans who had stayed behind to monitor the situation, she watched the galaxy slowly tear itself apart. Her job was to record everything and report back to Earth. What she saw was worse than anyone had predicted. The war between the Mordaki Empire, Zenthari Commonwealth, and hegemony of Kess had grown into a nightmare. Without human mediators, the three sides could not even agree on basic rules for fighting. Civilian ships were destroyed without warning. Entire planets were abandoned as their populations fled in terror. Mi-young recorded another distress signal. This one came from a refugee convoy of Zenthari families. They had been drifting in space for 3 weeks looking for any planet that would accept them. So far, 12 different worlds had refused to help. In the past, humans would have organized refugee camps and negotiated with planets to accept the displaced families. Now no one wanted to take responsibility for solving the problem. The Quillari had tried to take over humanity's role as peacekeepers. The Hive Queen sent thousands of her insect-like warriors to establish order in the war zone. It was a disaster. The Quillari could only think as a group mind. They could not understand why individual beings would fight each other instead of working together like a hive. When Quillari negotiators met with Mordaki generals, they kept asking the same question. Why do you not simply absorb your enemies into your collective consciousness? The Mordaki, who valued individual honor above everything else, thought the Quillari were insulting them. 3 peace meetings ended in violence. Mi-young watched the recordings of failed negotiations. Without humans to translate between different ways of thinking, species that had worked together for centuries could no longer communicate effectively. On Earth, Admiral Do-hyun oversaw the Great Withdrawal. Every day, more human ships arrived home carrying people from distant colonies and research stations. Earth's orbital shipyards worked around the clock to process the returning fleets. How many more ships are still out there? Asked his assistant. Captain Jin-ae Do-hyun checked his displays. 237 human vessels are still in transit. The last ones should arrive within the month. Some humans had chosen not to return to Earth. Instead, they established new colonies, far beyond Council space. These settlements were completely independent. owing nothing to either Earth or the alien civilizations they had left behind. Dr. Yunji, Earth's former head of xenological studies, spent her days reading desperate messages from alien scientists. For decades, they had worked together on projects to understand how different species could cooperate. Now, without human insights into cross-species psychology, their research programs were falling apart. One message came from Dr. Crystalline Song of Knowledge, a Vithani researcher who had been studying pack behavior in wolf-like species. "Dear Yunji," the message began, "I cannot understand why the pack hunters on Kepler 7 keep fighting among themselves instead of hunting together. In the past, you helped me see that their behavior made sense from their individual perspectives. Now I am lost, please help." Yunji filed the message without responding. Earth's new policy was clear: complete disengagement from all alien affairs. No exceptions. The economic effects of human withdrawal spread like a disease through the galaxy. It started with small problems that grew larger every day. The Nephrons and Vithani had a disagreement about shipping contracts in the Kepler-Vega trade corridor. In the past, human arbitrators would have solved this dispute in a few hours. Instead, both sides hired lawyers and began a legal battle that lasted months. As the legal fight continued, trade ships could not use the corridor. This created shortages of rare minerals that dozens of worlds needed for their technology. Prices began to rise. Planets that depended on trade started to suffer. Engineer Wan Ho worked on Earth's new deep space monitoring station. His job was to listen to communications from across the galaxy and report on major events. Every day he detected more distress signals. "The Altair system just went dark," he reported to his supervisor. "No communications for the past week. What about the Rigel sector? 3 different wars and nobody seems to know what they are fighting about." The monitoring station received thousands of calls for help every day. Most came from former allies, who had worked closely with humans. Without human coordination, their joint projects were failing. Research stations shut down. Trade agreements collapsed. Defense alliances fell apart. Wonho felt sorry for the aliens, but he followed his orders. Earth was no longer responsible for fixing the galaxy's problems. The Mordecai-Zenthari-Kess War entered its second year. 17 star systems had been consumed by the fighting. Billions of beings were dead, missing, or displaced. The 3 warring civilizations showed no signs of stopping. Mi Young documented the latest battle reports from her hidden observation post. The Mordecai had just destroyed a Zenthari colony ship carrying 2 million civilians. The Zenthari responded by attacking a hegemony medical station. The hegemony struck back at Mordecai trade routes. Without humans to remind them that there were rules of war, each side grew more brutal. They began targeting civilians, destroying hospitals, and poisoning entire planets to deny them to their enemies. In the past, human peacekeepers would have stepped in after the first few atrocities. They would have forced all sides to follow basic humanitarian principles. Now, there was no one to stop the violence from escalating. The Galactic Council met every week to discuss the crisis, but they could never agree on what to do. The Vithani wanted to negotiate. The Quillari wanted to send more warriors. The Nephrons wanted to flee to another galaxy entirely. Without humans to find compromise solutions, every meeting ended in argument. Counselor Mi Young recorded one such meeting. The Vithani Chancellor was practically begging for someone, anyone, to take charge of the situation. "We must do something," the Chancellor sang in her crystal voice. "The war grows worse every day. Soon it will spread to our own systems." The Quillari Hive Queen buzzed angrily. "You say we must act, but you offer no solutions. The hive mind cannot comprehend this chaos." "Then perhaps," said the Nephron representative, "we should follow the humans' example and withdraw from galactic affairs entirely." This suggestion caused an uproar. Half the council members began shouting at once. The other half sat in stunned silence. As Mi Young watched the council argue, she realized something important. For 50 years, humans had been the only species willing to take responsibility for solving galactic problems. Every other species was perfectly happy to complain about crises, but unwilling to make the sacrifices necessary to fix them. Now that humans were gone, The galaxy was learning what happened when no one wanted to be responsible for anything. The lesson was going to be painful. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, the galactic economy began to collapse like a house of cards. It started with something small. The Nephrons and Vithani had a shipping dispute over fuel prices in the Kepler-Vega trade corridor. In the past, human arbitrators would have fixed this problem in a few hours. Instead, both sides hired armies of lawyers and began a legal war that lasted months. Engineer Wan Ho sat at his monitoring station on Earth, watching the situation get worse every day. "The Kepler-Vega corridor is completely shut down," he reported to his supervisor. "No ships have moved through there in 6 weeks." The closed trade route created a chain reaction across the galaxy. Dozens of star systems depended on goods that moved through Kepler-Vega. Rare metals, medical supplies, and food shipments all stopped flowing. Prices began to rise on hundreds of worlds. On the crystal world of Vithani Prime, factories that made starship engines ran out of rare earth metals. They had to shut down production, putting millions of crystal beings out of work. The Vithani government blamed the Nephrons for the crisis. In Nephron space, gas refineries could not get the special crystals they needed from Vithani worlds. Without these crystals, they could not process fuel for starships. The Nephron Collective blamed the Vithani for being greedy and unreasonable. Both sides sent angry messages to the Galactic Council, demanding that someone fix the problem. But the Council had no idea how to make two stubborn species cooperate when they did not want to. The Quillari tried to help by offering to transport goods between Vithani and Nephron space using their own ships. This created a new problem. Quillari vessels were designed for hive mind crews who all thought the same thoughts. Individual traders from other species found the ships impossible to work with. A Vithani crystal merchant named Harmonic Resonance of Profit tried to load cargo onto a Quillari transport. The ship's hive mind crew kept asking why he wanted to make money instead of working for the good of all beings. The merchant tried to explain the concept of individual profit, but the Quillari could not understand why anyone would want something that did not benefit the entire galaxy. The loading process took 3 days instead of 3 hours. By the time the cargo was finally loaded, the Vithani merchant had missed his delivery deadline and lost his contract. Similar problems happened throughout the galaxy. Species that had worked together for decades suddenly found they could not cooperate without human translators to explain their different ways of thinking. Dr. Unji continued to receive desperate messages from alien researchers on Earth. Today's message came from a Thorani scientist studying weather patterns on gas giant planets. "Dear Unji," the message read, "our research project with the Nephrons has completely failed. We cannot understand why they see weather as a living thing that must be respected rather than controlled. In the past, you helped us work together, despite our different perspectives. Now we are completely lost." Yunji saved the message in her files without responding. She felt sorry for her former colleagues, but Earth's policy was clear. Humans were no longer responsible for making aliens understand each other. The Mordaki-Zenthari-Kes war had consumed 23 star systems by now. Refugee fleets with billions of displaced beings drifted through space, looking for any world that would accept them. Most planets refused to help, afraid that refugees would bring the war to their systems. One refugee convoy of 3 million Zenthari families had been traveling for 8 months without finding a safe haven. Their ships were running out of food and fuel. Children were dying from diseases that could easily be cured if any world would let them land. The convoy sent desperate messages to every planetary government in council space. Most ignored the messages completely. A few sent brief replies saying they had no room for refugees. In the past, humans would have organized a massive relief effort. They would have negotiated with planets to accept refugees, coordinated supply, ships to provide food and medicine, and established temporary camps until permanent homes could be found. Human relief workers would have risked their lives to save alien civilians who meant nothing to Earth. Now, the refugees were on their own. Linguist Haiwan worked in Earth's intelligence division, monitoring communications across the galaxy. She made an interesting discovery while translating alien news broadcasts. 3 different languages have developed new words specifically to describe the time before humans left. she reported to her supervisor. The Vithani now used the phrase crystal days of harmony to mean when problems could be solved. The Quillari word, many thoughts flowing together time, translates to the era when different minds could cooperate. The Nephrons have started saying wind carries hope season to describe any period when difficult tasks seemed possible. Her supervisor, Director Sung Min, found this fascinating. They are creating historical terminology around our absence. This suggests they understand they are living through a significant historical period. Yes, Haewon agreed. But understanding the problem and being able to fix it are two different things. The galactic communication networks began to fail. For decades, humans had maintained and upgraded the quantum relay stations that allowed instant communication across the galaxy. Without human engineers to service the equipment, relay stations started breaking down one by one. When the relay station in the Tau Ceti system failed, 12 star systems lost contact with the rest of the galaxy. When the main hub in Vega space went dark, entire sectors became isolated islands floating in the cosmic ocean. Species that had been arguing with each other for months suddenly could not communicate at all. This did not make the arguments stop. Instead, it made them worse as each side assumed the worst about what the other side was planning in silence. The Quillari Hive Queen tried to take over maintenance of the communication network. She sent thousands of her worker drones to repair the relay stations. But Quillari technology was biological, designed for creatures that shared a group mind. The quantum relays needed individual engineers who could make quick decisions without consulting a hive. Most of the repair attempts failed. Some made the problems worse. The galaxy became quieter and more isolated every day. Prime Minister Yu Jin stood in Earth's main command center, watching displays that showed the deteriorating situation across the galaxy. Red warning lights marked failed systems, collapsed governments, and ongoing wars. The displays looked like a patient dying in a hospital bed. "How long do we think galactic civilization can survive without us?" asked Admiral Do-hyun. Yu Jin studied the data. "Our analysts estimate 6 months to 2 years before complete breakdown. Some regions are already reverting to pre-spaceflight isolation. And if we intervene now, we save them, they thank us for a few weeks, and then they go back to treating us like servants. We have seen this pattern before." On her monitoring station, Counselor Mi Young recorded the latest council meeting. The alien representatives looked tired and defeated. Their species were struggling with problems they had never had to solve alone. The Vithani Chancellor spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking crystal. "We have tried everything we know. Our trade networks are failing. Our communication systems are breaking down. Our best efforts to maintain order have only made chaos worse." The Quillari Hive Queen buzzed sadly. "The hive mind cannot comprehend the individual motivations that drive most conflicts. We need translators between different forms of consciousness." For the first time, the Nephron representative spoke what everyone was thinking. "We need the humans to come back." The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to admit their dependence on a species they had taken for granted for 50 years. But the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. The galaxy had learned to rely on human problem-solving, human diplomacy, and human willingness to sacrifice for others. Without humans, the great interstellar civilization that had taken thousands of years to build was falling apart in less than 2 years. But admitting the problem and fixing it were two different things. And humans were very far away, building a new life without the galaxy that had used them up and thrown them away. 2 years had passed since humans walked away from the galaxy. The results were catastrophic beyond anyone's worst predictions. Director Jin Woo stood before Earth's Strategic Analysis Council, presenting his annual report on galactic affairs. The holographic display behind him showed a map of known space. Large sections glowed red, indicating regions where civilization had completely collapsed. "The Zenthari Commonwealth no longer exists," Jin Woo reported to the gathered Earth officials. "Their government fell 6 months ago. Most of their worlds have either been conquered by the Mordaki Empire or abandoned entirely. Zenthari survivors have formed pirate fleets that attack any ship they encounter." Prime Minister Yu Jin studied the map with growing concern. "What about the hegemony of Kes? gone silent 3 months ago. We believe their entire species may be extinct, but we cannot confirm this without sending scouts into their territory. The war that had started the crisis continued to spread like a plague. Without human peacekeepers to contain the fighting, the conflict had consumed 47 star systems. Entire civilizations had been wiped out. Billions of beings were dead or missing. Commander Su Jin, head of Earth Defense Command, reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. 7 Council member species have withdrawn from galactic affairs completely. They have closed their borders and refuse all contact with other worlds. The remaining 8 species are barely maintaining control of their own systems. The Galactic Council itself met only once every few months now. Most representatives were too busy dealing with crises at home to waste time arguing about galactic problems they could not solve. On her hidden monitoring station, Counselor Mi Young recorded what might be the last official council meeting. Only 6 species sent representatives. The others had given up entirely. The Vithani Chancellor looked like a crystal sculpture that had been cracked and poorly repaired. "Friends," she began, "I fear this may be our final gathering. My people are facing revolution at home. Our economy has collapsed. Our colonies are declaring independence. I may not be Chancellor much longer." The Quillari Hive Queen's usually perfect harmony of voices sounded broken and discordant. The hive mind is fragmenting. Individual Quillari are beginning to think separate thoughts. We do not know how to handle minds that do not share the same goals. This was shocking news. For millions of years, the Quillari had been a perfect collective consciousness. Now the stress of trying to solve problems alone was breaking apart their fundamental nature as a species. The Nephron representative floated in his gas suit, barely moving. "My people are preparing to leave this galaxy entirely. We have built generation ships to carry us to the Andromeda Galaxy. We would rather face the unknown dangers of intergalactic space than continue living in this chaos." Mi Young watched the meeting with sadness. These were not evil beings. They were simply species who had never learned to solve hard problems because humans had always done it for them. Meanwhile, human colonies that had chosen independence were thriving in ways that surprised everyone, including other humans. Terraformer, Jamin led the settlement effort on New Sol, a planet at the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. His colony of 50,000 humans had achieved something remarkable. They had built a completely self-sufficient civilization in just 2 years. "We have everything we need," Jamin reported to Earth during his monthly communication. "Our farms produce enough food for everyone. Our factories make all the tools and technology we require. Our scientists are developing new innovations without having to worry about how they might be used in alien conflicts." Other independent human colonies reported similar success. Without the constant demands of galactic crisis management, human creativity and ingenuity were flourishing in new ways. Dr. Min Jun worked at the New Terra Research Institute, a human colony dedicated to pure scientific research. "We have made more discoveries in the past 2 years than I made in 20 years of council-sponsored research," he told his colleagues. "When you do not have to worry about how your inventions might be misused in alien wars, you can focus on real innovation." Back on Earth, cultural analyst Boram studied reports from the independent colonies with growing interest. "Our people are developing new forms of art, literature, and social organization," she reported to the government. "Isolation from galactics. Politics has allowed human culture to evolve in directions we never explored before. This created a difficult decision for Earth's leadership. Many humans were discovering that life without the galaxy was not only possible, but actually better in many ways." Admiral Do Hyun received daily reports about the deteriorating galactic situation. Today's report was particularly grim. "The Devourers have appeared in the Outer Rim," his intelligence officer reported. Do Hyun felt his blood turn cold. The Devourers were an ancient machine intelligence that had been dormant for millions of years. They consumed entire star systems, turning planets into raw materials for building more of themselves. In the past, they had been defeated only through the coordinated efforts of dozens of species working together. "How many systems have they taken?" Do Hyun asked. 17 so far, and they are accelerating. The machines adapt to any defense that is used against them. Each victory makes them stronger and smarter. This was the nightmare scenario that Earth strategists had feared. The Devourers were a threat that could only be stopped by unified galactic action, but the galaxy no longer had the ability to unite against any threat. Scientist Min Jun, working with Earth's Defense Research Division, ran calculations on the Devourer advance. If their expansion continues at the current rate, they will reach the core worlds within 18 months. They will reach Earth in approximately 4 years. The irony was bitter. Humans had left the galaxy to escape the endless cycle of cleaning up other species' problems. Now, the galaxy's inability to solve its own problems had created a threat that would eventually reach Earth anyway. The Quillari made the first official plea for humanity's return. Hive speaker Thousand Voices in Harmony sent a message that was broadcast across all of human space. To our human friends, the message began, "The hive mind admits its failure. We cannot understand the individual motivations that drive most conflicts. We cannot negotiate between species that think in ways we do not comprehend. We cannot coordinate the defense of the galaxy against threats that require many different types of minds working together." The message continued for an hour, detailing all the ways that Quillari attempts to replace human mediators had failed. It was a complete admission of defeat from a species that had once seemed impossibly advanced and wise. Similar messages arrived from other alien species. The Vithani sent crystalline songs of apology. The Nephrons composed flowing poetry about their regret for taking humans for granted. Even the proud Thorani, who rarely admitted mistakes, sent formal acknowledgments of their errors. But Earth's government remained unmoved. Prime Minister Yu Jin had heard too many alien apologies before. "They are sorry now because they need us," she told her advisors. "When the crisis passes, they will go back to treating us like servants." The question facing Earth was simple but terrible. Should they help the galaxy that had used them as disposable tools, or should they let it burn and face the consequences later? Some humans argued for intervention. "Millions of innocent beings will die if we do nothing," said Dr. Yunji during a cabinet meeting. "We cannot let entire species go extinct because their governments treated us badly." Others argued for continued isolation. "Every time we have helped them before, they have taken our sacrifice for granted," responded Admiral Do-hyun. "If we save them now, they will never learn to be responsible for themselves." The debate raged in human governments from Earth to the furthest colonies. Meanwhile, the Devourers continued their advance, consuming everything in their path. Either B. Galaxy burned, and humanity watched from a distance, trying to decide whether their former partners deserved salvation or whether some lessons could only be learned through complete disaster. Time was running out for everyone. 3 years after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy faced its darkest hour. The crisis that would force Earth to make its final decision had arrived. The Devourers had consumed 67 star systems. These ancient machines moved through space, like a plague of metal locusts, stripping entire worlds down to their core elements and using the materials to build more of themselves. With each victory, they became stronger, smarter, and harder to stop. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat in his office on Earth, reading the most desperate message he had ever received. It came from the emergency session of what remained of the Galactic Council. For the first time in galactic history, every surviving species had signed the same document. "To humanity," the message began, "we, the surviving members of the Galactic Council, make this formal acknowledgement. We were wrong. For 50 years, we treated your species as servants rather than partners. We took your sacrifices for granted. We demanded your help, but never offered our respect. We used your willingness to solve problems as an excuse to avoid responsibility for our own actions." The message continued with specific apologies from each species. The Vithani admitted they had seen humans as useful tools rather than intelligent beings worthy of equality. The Quillari confessed they had never tried to understand human individual consciousness because collective thinking seemed superior. The Nephrons acknowledged they had considered humans too young and primitive to deserve real representation in galactic affairs. "We now understand," the message concluded, "that our galaxy cannot function without human wisdom, human diplomacy, and human courage. We beg you to return, not as our servants but as our equals and leaders. Without you, we will all perish." Hyunwoo forwarded the message to Prime Minister Yu Jin and the Earth Council. Similar messages were arriving from individual planets, research stations, and refugee fleets throughout the galaxy. Even species that had never worked directly with humans were pleading for help. But the most shocking message came from the Devourers themselves. Dr. Min Jun stood before Earth's top, scientists and military leaders explaining his analysis of Devourer behavior. "The machines are not just randomly consuming systems," he reported. "They are following a specific pattern. They are targeting the most strategically important worlds first." Admiral Do Hyun studied the star charts. "It looks like they are trying to cripple galactic civilization rather than simply harvesting resources." "Exactly," Min Jun agreed. "The Devourers have been dormant for millions of years, watching and learning. They understand how galactic civilization works. They know that destroying key systems will cause a cascade failure that will make their job easier." The machines had calculated that galactic civilization was already weakened by the loss of human coordination. They had timed their awakening perfectly to take advantage of the chaos that humanity's withdrawal had created. "The Devourers are not just consuming worlds," Min Jun continued. "They are sending a message. 3 days ago, they transmitted a single communication to every remaining government in the galaxy." He played the recording. The Devourer voice sounded like grinding metal and screaming wind. "Your civilization is broken. Your species cannot cooperate. Your unity is shattered. You will be consumed because you are already dead." The message was terrifying because it was true. Without humans to hold them together, the galaxy had become a collection of isolated, frightened civilizations that could not work together to face any serious threat. On her monitoring station, Counselor Mi Young watched the galaxy's desperate attempts to organize a defense against the Devourers. It was heartbreaking to see how badly they failed at everything humans would have done automatically. The Vithani tried to coordinate a unified fleet, but they could not communicate effectively with other species. The Quillari attempted to establish a shared command structure, but their hive mind could not understand how to give orders to individuals who thought independently. The Nephrons wanted to retreat and abandon entire sectors to the machines. Each species responded to the crisis according to their own nature, but none of them could see the bigger picture that humans would have grasped immediately. They were like the blind men in the old Earth story, each touching a different part of an elephant and thinking they understood the whole animal. The first major battle between galactic forces and the Devourers was a complete disaster. 18 different species sent their best warships to defend the critical system of Altair Prime. Without human coordinators, the fleet fell apart before the fighting even began. The Vithani ships used energy weapons that interfered with Quillari, biological sensors. The Quillari vessels released chemical signals that poisoned Nephron crews. The Thirani fleet arrived 3 days late because they had not understood the battle plan that other species had developed. When the Devourers attacked, the Galactic Defense Fleet destroyed almost as many of their own ships as enemy machines. The survivors retreated in chaos, leaving Altair Prime to be consumed. Earth's monitoring stations detected the battle and its aftermath. Engineer Wanho watched the recordings with professional disgust. "It is like watching children try to perform surgery," he told his supervisor. "They mean well, but they have no idea what they are doing." Admiral Do Hyun convened an emergency meeting of Earth's military leadership. "The Devourers will reach the core worlds within 6 months," he reported. "If they take the industrial centers at Vega and Rigel, they will have enough resources to build a fleet that could threaten Earth directly." Cultural analyst Boram had spent months studying reports from the independent human colonies. "There is another factor to consider," she said. "Many of our people do not want to return to Galactic's service. They have built new lives and new cultures in isolation. Forcing them to abandon their independence could create internal conflicts within humanity." This was true. The independent colonies had sent their own message to Earth's government. Terraformer, Jamin spoke for many when he said, "We left the galaxy to escape its problems. If Earth chooses to re-engage with alien politics, we will support that decision, but we will not participate. Our children deserve to grow up free from the burden of constantly saving ungrateful aliens." Prime Minister Yu Jin faced the most difficult decision in human history. She could maintain isolation and let galactic civilization collapse completely, risking that the Devourers would eventually threaten Earth anyway. Or she could offer help, but only on terms that would prevent aliens from ever taking humanity for granted again. The decision became urgent when Earth's deep space sensors detected something terrifying. The Devourers had split their forces. While most of their fleet continued consuming systems in the galactic core, a smaller group had broken off and was heading directly toward human space. "They know about our independent colonies," Admiral Do-hyun reported grimly. "The machines are targeting human settlements that have no galactic defenses." The first target was New Sol, Jamin's colony at the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. 50,000 humans who had built a peaceful, self-sufficient civilization were about to face an enemy that their small colony fleet could never defeat. Yu-jin realized that isolation was no longer an option. The Devourers would hunt down every human settlement, whether it was part of galactic civilization or not. The machines understood that humans were the key to galactic unity, so they would eliminate humans first to ensure that organized resistance could never emerge. She stood before Earth's parliament and announced her decision. "We will offer our help to the galaxy, but not as servants returning to masters. We will return as partners who demand equal respect and shared responsibility, and we will do it on our terms, not theirs." The message that Earth sent to the galaxy was simple and non-negotiable. Humanity will help you fight the Devourers, but only if you agree to a new form of galactic government that treats all species as equals. No more expecting humans to solve every problem, while other species take credit for success and blame humans for failure. No more sending humans to die in wars that aliens started but cannot finish. "We will work together as partners, or you will face the Devourers alone." The galaxy's response was immediate and unanimous. "Yes, whatever you want. Just please come back." But saying yes to partnership and actually practicing it would be two very different things. Humanity was about to test whether the galaxy had truly learned from its 3 years of disaster, or whether aliens would try to slip back into their old habits as soon as the immediate crisis passed. The final battle for the future of galactic civilization was about to begin.